Hey guys, Legendary Grimlock here, and today we're going to do something special here, and this was at a subscriber's request as well, so please comment on this video so I can pin your comment. And today we're going to talk about Zeb the Giganotosaurus. If you guys didn't know, Zeb, this is the actual name for Biosyn's Giganotosaurus, was Zeb because of these zebra-like patterns on its body. Interesting, right? So Zeb here was one of the few creatures done dirty in the Jurassic Park franchise. I mean, got done dirtier than the Ceratosaurus because it wasn't even a villain. It was actually a natural creature. But we're going to see if this natural creature, right, can survive 2005's Peter Jackson's Skull Island, okay? So we're going to take a look at the essentials: food, water, and shelter. Now, let's get this out the way. We're not going to cover the smaller predators here today. We're really not. There's no point. The only threats to Zeb here, or to even any Giganotosaurus in general, are the Statosaurus rexes, which are evolved forms, smarter and more strategic variants. Sorry, not variants. Evolutions of the Tyrannosaurus rex with a stronger bite force, much more mobility, and better terrain capabilities. And the Venatosaurus, a pack-hunting velociraptor that pretty much roams in, sorry, not velociraptor, but dromaeosaur or whatever, that pretty much exceeds the size of Jurassic Park's raptors, if not, are probably just slightly bigger than them. Okay? So these two creatures are the only predatory ones that are actually a threat to Zeb here. While I do think Zeb is going to have a hard time, I do think he can definitely run off Venatosaurus due to his size and definitely his roar, okay? He's just way too big. He's much more powerful. He doesn't really have anything to worry about from them. So in all honesty, yeah, he's in pretty good shape here. So obviously, water is easy for him to come by. There are many pools and even swamp-like waters where Zeb can pretty much drink out of. There's no reason for Zeb to worry about water. And as for shelter as well, he can find many environments. There are some forests that it can inhabit, like larger, carnivores, and are capable of pretty much hiding Zeb. Zeb's green colored skin also provides camouflage, meaning he could naturally blend in with both nightly and morning like forest greenery, right? But enough of that. Let's talk about food. And the first creature that comes to mind is Ligocristis. Ligocristis is this evolved hadrosaur of Skull Island. They have such a high, birthing rate to the point where, it kind of counters their baby or infant mortality rate, okay? And they're one of the fastest creatures on, probably the second fastest prey animal on Skull Island. And I think Zeb's going to get one. I think Zeb could definitely get one if he ambushes them and gets the drop on them. Plus, his camouflage really helps. Another creature I think Zeb will have a hard time getting and probably not be able to get are Silvaceratops. Silvaceratopses are, again, evolved ceratopsians. But here's the thing, right? They move like goats. Yeah, they actually have the same ability as goats, being able to climb upon mountain ranges. This means Zeb is going to have to wait for them to come onto the ground and make sure he gets them just in time. Now, yes, I do think Zeb will get them when they actually have like breeding seasons and he's able to, get a hold of them. But more often than not, I don't see Zeb catching them. But I do see him catching the Ligocristis a lot more than I see him catching a Silvaceratops. Now, next one, we have Diablosaurus. This is one of the herbivores that are way, way too dangerous for Zeb. All right, these things are able to send Venatosaurus flying and are able to hold their ground against Vrexes, even ward them off. And these guys aren't even some kind of ceratopsian or rhino. No, these guys are sauropods. Yeah, so you can imagine the bulk they really have behind their their strikes, their attacks, their tails, okay? So Diablosaurus, and they come in pairs too, sometimes herds, and Diablosauruses are just way too heavily armored for it. So Zeb is actually going to have a hard time taking down something of that caliber. You could say, okay, well, what if you compare him to a normal Giganotosaurus? Okay, let's really, talk about it. Normal Giganotosauruses do have a bite that kind of, think of like Ark's Gnash ability. You're going to bleed out. It's basically a bite that prevents you from actually healing all the way. So eventually the prey item is going to lose a lot of blood to where it collapses. And honestly, I do think that is the best way for Zeb to really approach anything on Skull Island. If he wants it, he's going to have to hit it with that Gnash ability. But moving on, another dangerous herbivore that Zeb is definitely not going to be able to get unless it's by itself. And even then, it's a 50-50 chance he's not walking away from that. It's going to be a Feructus. Feructus are strong enough to cripple Vrexes, even more than a Diablosaurus. Okay? And these guys are literally are one of the toughest herbivores on Skull Island. They're the second toughest herbivore. Diablosaurus is at least a third. Okay? Next up, you have Megaprimatus Kong, or basically Kong species. Yes, we're going to talk about Kong species just for a little bit in this one here. And these guys were in an evolution arms race with Vrexes. And they were actually neck and neck and were pretty much winning until a disease came in and wiped out the rest of Kong species. But before that happened, right, before that even took place, these guys were literally smacking around Vrexes. These guys were going toe-to-toe with Vrexes. And often, adult Vrexes would either back down, the same with these adult Kongs, and if they ever caught infants, my gosh, the Kongs would literally kill the infants of Vrexes to prevent them from becoming futuristic predators. So Zeb here has two herbivores that he might be able to take down, considering he has a much more lethal bite, and he could definitely bite a Kong with enough force to, injure it. But then again, you have the fact that the Vrexes have a much stronger bite force, and these guys weren't able to bite through Kong's arms and stuff. Meaning that these guys have a stronger bones than even average creatures that pretty much shouldn't be able to stand up to bone-crushing jaws. Yeah. Plus, the Vrex itself is also a pack-coordinated creature, living up into families up to 3 to 5. So this means that if Zeb runs into a Vrex, he's going to have to make sure it's alone. And even then, it's very possible a Vrex won't risk a fight with Zeb. And the same with Zeb. He won't risk a Vrex. But again, we have to include the possibility that it's possible for Zeb to accidentally walk in on a nest. The problem with Skull Island and surviving there, now I know I said Black Panther could survive it, but that's because he already had his suit and he has his standard gear. Plus, he's more perceptive. The problem with this is that Zeb could take a wrong step, fall, and end up in the insect pit, where he could be devoured by tons of insects. Okay? There are too many factors that actually go into 2005 Skull Island, because setting foot on the beach, your time there can actually end in an instant. Going into a swamp, your time there can end in an instant. Simply going into the forest, your time there could end in an instant. It does not matter where you go or, where you're, trying to get to or trying to be here. The sheer fact that a simple step, a simple mistake can cost you is what really matters on this island. For example, young juvenile or, juvenile like Vistatosaurus, right, could accidentally stumble upon Venatosaur nests. And once that happens, the young Vrexes are lucky to escape with their lives, because the Venatosaurs will drop everything in order to protect their infants and will straight up kill a Vrex juvenile. So with that being said here, Zeb needs to tread carefully. And I'm not saying he wouldn't, but the sheer fact that Zeb has to adapt to this island, its new herbivores, its new carnivores, leads me to believe that he's going to have a much harder time than most carnivores. Had this, for example, the Brontosaurus, right? Which is a creature that Zeb would probably try to prey upon if he has a hard time getting herbivores, thinking that this could be an easy opportunity. Yes, sometimes they run, but in all honesty, that movie did not portray how they actually are. There is a male in the group, right? This lead alpha male that will pretty much, herd all the other males around him, and they'll protect the females and the infants with stomps and tail whips. Now, this is important because this means that Zeb is going to possibly bite off more than he can chew. It's very possible he can get an infant, and again, if he decides to ambush, majority of what I'm saying here is that Zeb is probably going to have to be a very good ambush predator. There's also another thing that is really going to have to affect Zeb here, and that's his time to adapt to the island. Now, you see, all these creatures here are essentially carnivores or dinosaurs and mammals that have evolved over 65 million years on this island, past the dinosaur era. Okay? So this means that these guys are actually more evolved than pretty much some of the Jurassic Park creatures today. These guys are basically like, miniature or at least like subpar versions of an Indominus Rex, or at least level 40 dinosaurs if for by Jurassic World, the game players. All right? That's basically what they are. So in all honesty, do I think Zeb could last here? Honestly, I'm 50-50, and I'm actually saying in long term, no. But can he survive here for a good number of times? Yes, I think he could last a year here. But the fact that he needs to adapt and evolve to the carnivores that are much more experienced, and even herbivores that are much more experienced and much more dangerous, leads me to believe that Zeb, the Giganotosaurus, would not last on Skull Island for more than a year. That's all I really got to say here. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock.